Hello, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be sharing everything that I read in October and the things that I hope to read in November. So I read, I think 10 books in October. Some were physical, some were digital on my Kindle. I'm gonna just go through them. I'm not gonna go in order. And I don't know if I'm gonna share ratings because my ratings in my reading journal are always different than what I end up putting on my Fable. Fable's more accurate. I will link my Fable below if you want to follow. Master of Salt and Bone by Carrie Lake is one of the books I've read in the beginning of the month. I gave that a pretty good rating. I loved the characters, the spice. I loved the marriage of scary horror, haunted house vibes mixed with romance and spice and a little bit of fantasy. I thought it was really well written. I made a spread for it in my reading journal. Also, I'm sorry for the sound quality. Kids are home today. My microphone died. And so I'm just kind of working with what I got. Okay, so I really loved Master of Salt and Bones, enough to put a spread in my journal. The next book that I read was Pen Pal, and I read this as one of my Roll for Reads prompts, which is a Dungeons and Dragons based reading challenge that Tori here on YouTube is running. So I'll link that video below if you're into that. It's really cool, just bringing Dungeons and Dragons and reading together. I chose Pen Pal for the one prompt, which was called Party Conflict, and that was to read a book with a heavy interpersonal drama. So Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger, and this is the pretty edition. This was the book I chose for that, and I loved every second of this. In the beginning, it was mostly curiosity and the spice, the kind of anticipation that kept me hanging on. And then the plot went wild. The ending of this book, insanity. I never predicted how this was going to end. It was so good. This was probably my favorite horror romance or paranormal romance that I've ever read. And I know for a fact I did give this 5 stars. Our main character is in this big, beautiful Victorian house. Her husband just passed away. Her house is run down, and this man comes to her door, offers her a deal for her roof, to redo her roof. So that's how the two characters meet initially, and then things just kind of go from there. There are ghosts in this book. I will say that. I don't want to say much else because I want you to read it because it's so freaking good. But the ghosts in the book were awesome side characters, and the plot twist at the end, I'm telling you, that is honestly what made the book for me. It made my jaw drop. I did also do a spread for this book. This is just how I kind of envisioned the house and like the ghosty vibes and etc. So, oh, and there was a quote, I learned that love means nothing unless it's acted upon. Love isn't real without intent, it's a verb. So I just thought that was beautiful. I squeezed this in, crammed this in at the end of October. So Heavenly Bodies by Imani Eru. I did annotate this guy and I had so much fun with this book. So this is kind of a astrology based fantasy romance. I would say that it leans a little more heavy on the fantasy side of things. So we have our main character who is assigned to kill a star. In order to do that, she needs to basically partner up with the enemy, and then they need to train together and like form this bond that will kill this star. The stars are based off of, if you can see here, they're based off of the astrology signs. The whole book is basically about the training, the explanation of magic and powers and the abilities that our main character has. She's got really rare abilities because she is able to do 3 different types of magic. That's really it. She's like learning how to unlock, especially the shadow magic. She hasn't really, something traumatic happened to her as a kid. So her shadow magic is kind of out of touch. And so she's learning how to control and use that again. And then she's got other magics as well. She's a dream walker, so she can go into people's dreams. And I believe she's a necromancer. So she's pretty badass. And then the male main character / love interest is the enemy, and his father is the one that captured her and basically gave her the job of killing the star. He is supposed to be training her and guiding her, etc. And then they find out that they actually need each other in order to accomplish this task. And in the meantime, there is love, there's romance. There was not much spice. It was very minimal, and it was really towards the end of the book. So you have to get through a lot of the book in order to hit that point of romance really happening between the two of them, but it was a slow burn and it was worth it. So I gave this a pretty good rating as well because I really did like this book a lot and I do want to continue the series. I also read The Cursed by Harper L. Woods. This is the second book in the Coven series, I think. This is basically a series about witches and a coven and vessels. It's spicy. I read the first book last month, or before the month of September. I read the first book in September, this book in October. I do like the series. I like the writing. I don't remember this book much though. Like a lot of this book, I just didn't process. The first book I liked a lot more. Without giving too much away, this picks up right where the first book left off. And our main character is a witch. She was captured in the first book by a coven and she was basically fighting vessels, essentially demons. And so they fight and fall in love, etc. in the first book, and then it continues on in this book, and then they have a new, like, I guess you could say a new goal in mind for this book. But it was okay. It was just okay. I think I gave this a mediocre rating. I read The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. This is a chunky book. I annotated it, which was so fun. I want to be so honest with you. I left my stuff in there. It was literally just spice. That was it. I don't like just spice. I need more. So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna even finish the book, let alone the whole series, which is like 6 or 7 books long. But once I got like about halfway, it picked up so much and the plot started plotting and it started getting intense. It started having a purpose to the story. And so once that happened, I was locked in. I was like, yep, I love this book so much. This went from quickly too. This went from a 2-star to a, like, I almost want to say 5-star. I think that I'm pretty sure I gave this 5 or very close to it because I loved this book and I still think about this book and I want to continue the series so bad. So basically our male main character, the guy right here, Riot, I hate his name. He's in a secret society and they do really bad shit. And he basically, in this society, they are assigned like slaves, like female slaves, but they are arranged to marry a woman. And it's different. Like the slave is not the woman they're arranged to marry. They get to choose their slave. And that slave then like pleases and pleasures them throughout their time until they are ready to be arranged to marry. So it's very sexist. It's very like degrading. It's the women are seen as objects, not humans, not equals. And it's just sort of insulting. Like it's extremely insulting. I would hate to be one of the women stuck in this society because they are just used and abused and then thrown away. And then they are assigned to marry these men who cheat, lie. I mean, they're just bad men. So I didn't like Riot at first because of that reason. I was like, oh, he's a piece of shit. She deserves so much better. And she kind of bowed down to him for a majority of the book. And then she finally started getting a backbone and sticking up for herself and being like, no, fuck you. I'm not doing that. You're wrong. This is not cool. Da, da, da. And then like they sort of like hashed that out and it was fine in the end. But I'm sorry if this isn't making sense. I'm trying not to give anything away, but I really ended up liking the two of the characters by the end of the book. At first I was skeptical. I was like, nah, girl, run, like get out, leave, because he's horrible. But it ended up being so good. So I've never had a book that went from such a sour rating to such a high rating. I've just never had that. So I love it, and I'm gonna continue. I read Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This is the first Devney book that I have read. I do have her other series, The Edens, I think. I just haven't gotten into it yet. The edges on this are just gorgeous. This edition is, in general, this is just so pretty. So this is the first fantasy romance that this author has written. And I believe it's going to be a series. And it was amazing. Amazing. I think I gave this one a spread as well. I did. Oh my God, I did. I'm so glad I did. So sorry, it's like super shiny, but There is dragons, there is monsters, there is magic, there is powers, there's romance. There was, I believe, if I recall, there was not much spice, which is fine because it didn't need it. There was just so much like building up between the two characters that the spice didn't even need to happen, and it kind of didn't, so I didn't mind that. I loved the way that this was written. This was almost an immediate 5 stars. I knew pretty early on because of the way it was written and the creativity behind the monsters and the way magic was used and the way the world was built. Oh my God. This is one of my favorite fantasy worlds that I've read because it mostly takes place in a treehouse community and forest, and that to me is just, I love it. I love it. If I could if I could live my life in a tree house, I would so do it, in the middle of like a beautiful forest. And if I had elves and magical beings surrounding me, that would be sick. That'd be sick. I wish. And dragons, dude, if I, oh my God, the things I would do to be able to own a fucking dragon. That would be insane. As long as it was nice to my cat, because I'd want to keep the cat. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. Our female main character is basically arranged / set up to marry this man through a bargain. They're sort of enemies in the beginning. So she is sent to go marry this enemy, and they go to this really cool like forest town, and they encounter all kinds of evil creatures, and the whole goal of the book is to figure out why the king is burning their libraries and what he's hiding basically. And the lighting is so bad right now, the backlight, oh my goodness. So they are traveling together, they are trying to figure out what's up with the king, why he's doing what he's doing, and from there romance ensues. I can't focus. Oh my God. Oh, there's a crazy plot twist at the end of this, by the way. It's very unexpected, and it definitely made the story just even that much more elevated. So I recommend reading this for sure. Okay, so there's some books I read that I don't have the physical copies of because I read them on my Kindle or I gave them away already. So The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, I did read that. I had the physical copy. I gave it to my boyfriend's sister. So that was pretty good. That was my first Rachel Gillig book that I read, and I didn't know what to expect because it had mixed reviews, but it was silly. There was some funny moments as far as the gargoyle and how he just interacted with literally everybody. I liked the tension that was starting to build between the love interest and the female main character. The quests that they had to go on, I thought were pretty interesting too. They were not as action-packed as I had hoped, except for one of the scenes where she had to fight one of the gods. That was pretty cool. I forget, the Oar. She had to fight the Oar, and that was really neat. Just the way that Rachel wrote that whole like battle scene was cool. So overall, that book was not as high of a rating for me as I thought it would be. It was sitting around like a 3.5 star, but I do think it was worth reading, and I think it is a series, so I might continue once the second book comes out, just because I'm curious to see where it's going to go. The world building was a little bit lacking. I kind of want it more. I just want it to get a better picture. Like the way that Devney Perry describes Shield of Sparrow's world compared to Rachel Gillig's world, it just really was lackluster. And so for me, if you're not building up the world enough, and if you're not really giving me much as far as the characters go, if I'm not really feeling their chemistry, and then on top of that, the plot is a little bit holy, the book, it's just not like gonna be for me. So, I read A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kinney. That was a really cozy fantasy, and it was based around Halloween and October, but it was just a little slow and dragged on a little bit. But it was perfect for just an in-between book. Definitely worth reading, and especially if you like a good, cozy, comfy fantasy. And the love interest in that I thought was interesting too. There was a little bit of a chemistry lack there. I didn't really feel like the two characters were believable in their attraction. I liked him as a character and I liked her as a character. I just didn't like them as a romantic thing, but that's just my preference. So definitely worth reading that in October. And I would say that that's a book that you should only read in October because of, again, the fact that it's very heavily Halloween coded. All right, so that's everything I read in October, I think. So for November's roll for reads, I rolled 4 prompts. So read a book with wealth, greed, and ambition. For that, I'm going to read Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. This, I think, is religious-based fantasy, but there's definitely wealth and greed involved. And the next prompt was to read a book with a morally gray love interest, like a dark romance more likely. The Sinner by Chantal Tessier. This is the second book in this series. The next prompt is read a book with a destructive or unpredictable antagonist. I'm choosing The Spellcaster by Jamin Eve. I don't really know what this is about. I kind of read the back briefly, but it is a fantasy and it is dark academia, so there's definitely going to be some kind of antagonist in this book. So I think this will be appropriate for that prompt. And I can always change books for the prompts if I find that they're not actually fitting. So, or if I end up not liking the book, I can DNF it and I can swap it out for something else. Last prompt that I got was a character struggling with self-esteem or too confident or cocky. And I can combine that with a book that is over 450 pages. So for right now, I'm choosing Bloody Heart by Sophie Lark. It's the 4th book in this series. It is not over 450 pages, but maybe if I can find a different book that'll fit that better. That was kind of a hard one because on the back of the books, it doesn't like explicitly say this character is struggling with self-esteem. You know what I mean? That's kind of something that you figure out as you read a book and as the author is building that character. So it's not like pertinent information that they put in the synopsises on the back of books. So it's kind of hard to find a book that fits it, but I feel like this might work. I was picking this in the too confident, cocky side of things because the male main characters in dark romances are usually cocky assholes. So I feel like this will fit that, but we'll see. Again, I'm probably going to change this out because I do want, and I do have to read one over 450 pages, I think. I think that's the point of that prompt. So anyway, that was my roll for reads for November. And then these are just other books that I want to hopefully get through in the month at some point. Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. This is a fantasy romance. It's about a bargainer. So essentially a, I guess, demon. And this woman has to call upon him to make a bargain in order to save people. She's a siren. She's not a human. She's a siren and he's the bargainer. A horror, just in case I feel like it. The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. This is about a woman that inherits this house and she needs somewhere to stay, so she takes up the offer to inherit this house. She goes and stays there, and then there's a graveyard somewhere on the property and it's haunted as fuck. So there's that. Here's a series. This is God Killer by Hannah Kanner. This is a trilogy. I do have the entire trilogy and I haven't read this yet, and I've had this on my TBR for a while. I've seen some people really did not like this, and as the series or the trilogy went on, people didn't like it, so I'm a little bit worried, but I'm gonna try it and see how I feel. Apparently this is like Stranger Things mixed with Gideon the Ninth and The Witcher. I loved The Witcher. That was such a good show. Near the Bone by Christina Henry. This is a straight up winter horror book. A woman trapped on a mountain attempts to survive more than one kind of monster. If I get to this, that's great. If not, whatever. King of Pride by Anna Huang. This is the second book. I read the first book in September, I think, and it was pretty good. This isn't high on my priority list though. So this is a Kings of Sins series. So every book, there's gonna be 7 of them based on the 7 sins. This one I definitely want to get to. This is high on my priority list for the month. Forged in Blood by Sadie Kincaid. This is a romantasy. I believe that there is dragons in this. Oh no, it's a Why Choose Vampire Romance. That's it. Those are my November books that I want to read and my October wrap up. I hope that you guys enjoyed. And if you have any book recs, leave them below because I'm interested. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.